IFC, Sustainable Stock Exchanges Initiative, UN Global Compact, UN Women, Women in ETFs, and the World Federation of Exchanges. In celebration of International Women's Day on 8 March 2020, over 90 stock exchanges around the world will ring their market opening or closing bells to draw attention to the critical role that businesses and markets can play and must play in tackling gender inequalities. Our partner organization for this initiative today, IFC, is a sister organization of the World Bank, a member of the World Bank Group, and is the largest global development institution focused on private sector in emerging markets. IFC works with more than 2,000 businesses worldwide, using its capital, expertise, and influence to create markets and opportunities where they are needed the most. In fiscal year 2019, IFC delivered more than $19 billion in long-term financing for developing countries, leveraging the power of the private sector and to end extreme poverty and boost shared prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, please shift your attention to the screen on the left for a video message from the Colombo Stock Exchange, which will be followed by a video message from IFC, which will feature their key stakeholders and partners on this initiative. The IFC video is prepared in commemoration of the 5th consecutive year of this Ring the Bell event.
We are committed to show our alignment and our support to encourage and promote the participation of women on boards and at senior management level in listed companies.
Drawing attention to gender equality is just not for Sri Lanka. It's just not for Australia. It's a matter of global priority. And that's one of the reasons why we've seen that there's a goal in Sustainable Development Goals. For us, it's part of a broader piece of work that we're doing in Sri Lanka on development and women's empowerment.
About 60% of the people who graduate from universities are women, but unfortunately it's only about 34% of the labor force are women. So there is a leakage there, fairly high leakage. We've had about 15 board leadership training programs, and over about 700 people have been trained, of which I think about 20% are female. And so that has really helped to bring this pipeline up.
At this juncture, we are probably around 9%, and we hope that that will keep growing. As you know, that there is an initiative by the government to try to make a voluntary participation on the boards of listed companies to make it 20% for females, and then I think by 2022 they'll probably make it mandatory.
In Sri Lanka itself, I think several things have happened. IFC's helped to put together a directory of women leaders on board. And really that's helped to map out the skills and qualifications of women who are in leadership positions in Sri Lanka. And we also ran a study to see how better diversified boards or boards with more gender parity perform, or the companies perform with regard to companies that have significantly less representation of women on their boards. And really there's a significant difference. The differences are as wide as 19% for ROE and over 30% for return on assets. It's not just they perform better on a social sort of level and more inclusive growth, they perform better on the financial metrics that their investors are monitoring them on. Certain sectors do better, in terms of gender parity. Banking, finance, and insurance, and then travel and real estate management.
The Australian Stock Exchange is the first stock exchange to ring the bell for gender empowerment. I want to congratulate the Colombo Stock Exchange for continuing this tradition here.
So the message for this year's Ring the Bell event is, I am generation equality. And that's the entire purpose, is to say we need to reach that goal of gender parity, and not take another few generations to reach it, but do it now. So this year's hashtag is Each for Equal, and that's really the message for the Ring the Bell event this year.
Now to deliver the keynote address, we have with us Ms. Anukabe Ratnam. Ms. Abeyaratne is a pioneering social entrepreneur featured on the Forbes Under 30 list and is Sri Lanka's first female World Economic Forum champion. Elected as the Asia Pacific representative to the UN Habitat Youth Advisory Board, she is the first and youngest Commonwealth Youth Award recipient and Zonta Award recipient for the environment. She is the co-founder of Growing Money, replanting over 60,000 mangroves, and a co-founder of Ignited, a digital training company. A proud alumni of Bishop's College, University of London, University of Colombo, and Harvard University, Ms. Abeyaratne is currently reading for a postgraduate degree at the University of Cambridge Judge Business School. May I kindly invite Ms. Anuka Abeyaratne to deliver the keynote of this ceremony.
Good morning. So last year, in 2019, I was driving on the road and trying to get to a meeting. And a Tuk guy started tailing me. For some reason, this day I just had enough. I had so much on my plate. And I took a video and I put it up on social media just to warn people. And it ended up going viral. It ended up getting featured on national television. And he got arrested because the video was undisputable. It was good proof. But what I learned from this incident was that there were people who tried to say that I was a foreign funded element, that it was a rehearsed situation, that I was trying to make a big deal out of a situation that didn't require all that. So for me and my team, what we realized was that there are people who feel that a young girl or a woman wouldn't be cool under pressure and try to do something that would have a long-term effect on Sri Lanka or even for women. But the best part or the outcome of this incident was the fact that now a lot of young girls, women, and even men use their phones to take videos and images of people who commit harassment or do any sort of really nasty things to them, and to the extent of even featuring or documenting domestic violence. So change can be done by yourself. It's about embodying your, personifying how you can create equality through little actions. Speaking of change, I and my team, we work in some of the most impoverished areas in Sri Lanka, like Monaragala and Badulla. And some of these women entrepreneurs that we mentor and train, they're facing some of the direst effects of climate change. This is because of unplanned development and so many other related issues. So even if you want to do something, it's quite tough to do these things out in a place where you have very little water and very little access to training and development, which is amazing because I was talking to some people from IFC and some of the other networks. It's amazing what you're doing up there as well. So what I ask of you, each one of you every day, is you have the authority and the power to make amazing decisions in this country or beyond. So every single time that you think of doing something, I sincerely hope and consider that you would take climate change and sustainability, because both of these go equally hand in hand. I mean, the largest investment firm, BlackRock, is now focusing exclusively on sustainability as well. So International Women's Day 2020 is all about embodying equality. And when you say embody equality, it's not about doing something. When you have the privilege, you might think that, I'll do this maybe tomorrow, day after, at a later stage. But it's about doing that act right then and there. And that's what I see for each and every one of us. So I sincerely hope you have an amazing day and that you do embody equality and try to create better pay wages, better gender, sort of gaps that you can bridge so that it's better for everyone out there. And like speakers before me, some impressive ones were saying, it's about ensuring that every company has a lot more women representation, because some decisions are really better made when you have a collective sort of ideas and ideals that bring more empathy and sustainability to the table. So thank you very much for having me here. I'm very grateful to Lokha Rahman and the IFC and the Sri Lanka Institute of Directors and the UN Global Compact. Thank you and have a nice day.
I now have the pleasure of inviting the Director of the Colombo Stock Exchange, Mr. Vimit Fernando, to deliver the welcome remarks of the ceremony.
Your Excellency David Hawley, Australian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Ms. Ano Kaberatne, Asia Pacific Representative to UN Habitat Youth Advisory Board, Ms. Amina Arif, IFC Country Manager for Sri Lanka and the Maldives, Ms. Amanthi Pereira, Deputy General Manager, Strategic Sustainability of MAS Holdings and Steering Committee Member of the UN Global Compact in Sri Lanka, Ms. Arashina Nekara, Vice Chairperson, Sri Lanka Institute of Directors, Chairperson of Sri Lanka Institute of Directors, Women's Directors Forum, distinguished guests. I take great pleasure in welcoming you all to the Colombo Stock Exchange this morning, as we once again, for the 5th consecutive year, prepare to ring the bell for gender equality. The Colombo Stock Exchange joined in on this initiative in 2016 as one of the initial stock exchanges that participated. And we use this platform to convene business leaders, investors, government officials, civil society, and other key partners at the country level to highlight the growing business and economic case for gender equality. Now, in Colombo in particular, it is big match season for those of you who know. So when you go around the venues where they play big matches, you see all these boys, prefects from big matches coming out, proudly wearing their tie, school tie, and I thought for a moment, what does that represent? It represents pride in what they belong to. It represents belief in their effort, and it represents support of their team. So I woke up this morning and I thought, those are all exactly the ways and the ways we at the Stock Exchange and I personally feel about the agenda that is under discussion today. So I Googled the color of International Women's Day and it was purple. So I went rummaged through 25 years of ties. I found my only purple tie. And I thought that would be a good way for us to start today. Also, I want to welcome in particular all the very, very impressive women we have from all walks of life, all industries and sectors. When I think personally about why I have been a supporter of gender equality all my life, it's because I had a very strong woman for a mother, and I had a very strong woman for a wife. And the responsibility, I think, of every woman here is not just to mentor other women, but it is actually to educate and inspire men as to why we should all be embracing this, because it takes two to tango, and it will take both sides of the gender line to actually have impact here. So I welcome you, and I welcome you to take that bold step in inspiring not only the female work staff, spouses, partners, children, but also the males in that respect. Overcoming the gender gap is a global moral and economic imperative. The event today is used as a call to action for businesses and to advance women's empowerment and gender equality. It is quite relevant that 90 stock exchanges from all around the world will be joining in, because we all have a strong responsibility to create an environment for the involvement of women in our respective markets. I say this not because it is the right thing to do, but also because the active participation of women in all levels of business is central to ensuring commercial and community-based development. Studies conducted all around the world continue to support this idea and show direct links between gender-neutral workforces and improved productivity, efficiency, and economic benefit. Women in the workforce remain among the least utilized economic and business resources in this country in particular. Closing this gender gap would yield exponential results. We at the CSE are encouraged to note that most of our listed companies have welcomed the participation of strong, independent, and qualified women on their boards, in senior management, And this is evident through the steady increase in the representation on boards, where women holding corporate board seats now constitutes about 9% of listed companies, which is continuing to improve slowly, but always improving in the right direction. And even though we appear that we have made progress over the years in terms of empowering women and have them rise to the top, the glass ceiling is still very much intact in certain pockets. While there are many companies that are actively engaged and working on a established gender agenda, leadership within organizations and management through, in some of these companies are developing strong programs around this. We do still have particular challenges, and in particular, the issue of unconscious bias. This is where well-intentioned men and women sometimes do not represent the true requirements of the overall agenda we're trying to push here without actually knowing that. And I think that is where education plays a very important role, and that is where we feel active participation from organizations like many of you who are here to force that agenda, raise that awareness, will actually play a very, very critical role. In the perspective of our exchange, creating an environment to enable women to thrive within an organization has always been a priority. We have very good gender representation in our workforce, and more importantly, we are now seeing that representation translating into many senior management positions. We have had a chief executive officer of this exchange who was a woman, which was actually quite an important milestone given the representation of the industry overall. Through the CSC's policies, practices, and initiatives, we remain committed to creating an environment to empower everyone to rise to their potential, both in the workplace and the community. We would therefore like to pledge our continued support today to ensure gender equality and the full participation of women at all levels of society. I urge all organizations and capital market stakeholders to enhance and capitalize on the leadership skills of women in the workforce, as well as they would with anyone, and to embrace the promise of our young women aspiring to be the leaders of tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fernando. May I now kindly invite IFC Country Manager for Sri Lanka and the Maldives, Ms. Amina Arif, to the podium to address the gathering.
Good morning, everyone, and really happy to see all of you here. Some familiar faces who are always, been part of our journey, and I welcome all of you back. So every day, every year, for 5 years now, we have rung the bell for equality. And really the sound of this bell has echoed in wider and wider circles around the world. I think I do want to point out this is I think it's a great reminder for what has been done and a great call to action for what still needs to be done. And I think it's important we remember both the things. We've come a ways, but there's still quite a long way to go. So when we talk about things like, generational equality and each for equal, it's to remind ourselves that there is still a long journey ahead, and all of us need to pull together in that direction to reach the goal that we're all hoping for. So this unified call to action around the world kind of accentuates the fact that advocating for equal gender representation on companies' boards and companies' workforces, it's not just a moral imperative, it is an economic imperative. It is smart business strategy. And with this year's theme, we're kind of making sure that we celebrate the progress that has been achieved. And there has been progress, let me not sort of discount that in any way. There's so much research around it, and all the research is unanimous that having more diversified boards produces better business results for companies. I mean, there's global research, there's research regionally, and then there's research in Sri Lanka. So, in all of them pretty much back up the same fact. Globally, I think the difference in return on equity is anywhere from about 10% for women, for boards with better representation, for companies with better representation, and 7% for those with significantly less representation. It may not look like much, but a 3% difference in ROE for a large company is really, it's a massive difference. You know, eking out that 1% just by cutting costs or increasing sales is so much harder than by having a more balanced board. It really has worked well. Our own research with, again, the Colombo Stock Exchange has very much backed this up, and you heard. Actually, the return on assets numbers, I mean, the difference is massive. You know, in some cases up to 19% on average. That's a lot. So I'm very proud to sort of note some of the progress that we've made when it comes to boards in Sri Lanka. So our analysis on the listed companies on the stock exchange shows that almost 10% of the members of boards are women now. You know, that's up from about 2 years ago where it was close to 8%. So small steps, you know, but all steps in the right direction. So you can see we've come a little ways, 25% increase if you will, and yet there's still a long way to go because we're still just at 10%. And that number, I think, it's not the number that's important, but it's the direction that we need to remind ourselves of again and again. IFC continues to play a role in narrowing gender gaps. We've tried to mainstream the gender conversation, so it's not one of those conversations that's left on the side while we do the rest of our investment programs and that. It's very much, you know, front and center of everything that we do. And we keep reminding all stakeholders that for the sustainable development that the country needs, you do have to have the entire population participating in that drive for growth, because you cannot leave the women out of it anyway. And we do our best to walk the talk. It's not always perfect, but you know, we at least try. For the past 5 years, we've seen how this message was amplified throughout. And really, the message from the Ring the Bell, it's encouraging to note some of the steps that companies in Sri Lanka are taking to improve gender equality in the workforce, not just on leadership boards, but beyond. This would not have been possible if it were not for the long-standing partnership that IFC has had with the Colombo Stock Exchange, along with the immense support from the Australian government under the IFC DFAT Women in Work program. Throughout the years, we've also had the privilege of partnering with SLATE, starting with the first conversations with Sharma, and with the UN Global Compact and UN Women. And all of those conversations are helping us to take this agenda forward. When women are empowered, businesses thrive, economies grow. So let us leverage the power of this partnership to promote gender inclusivity in the workforce and to create better and more opportunities for women. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Arif. Now may I kindly invite Vice Chairperson of the Sri Lanka Institute of Directors and Chairperson of SLID's Women's Directors Forum, Ms. Aroshi Nanekar, to the podium to address the gathering.
Distinguished invitees, champions of gender inclusivity and parity, ladies and gentlemen. It brings me great pleasure to speak a few words on behalf of the Sri Lanka Institute of Directors and the Women Directors Forum. The Women Directors Forum is a pioneering initiative by the Sri Lanka Institute of Directors and was launched in August of last year. The objective of WDF is to bring gender inclusivity at the highest echelons of the corporate world, that of the board of directors and the C-suite. We have approached this problem with a three-pronged attack plan. One of the first is lobbying the government and the regulator to bring gender inclusivity into the regulations. Second, crafting a bespoke training program focusing on board-ready women. Third, building awareness among corporate heads, the chairman and CEOs of corporates, as well as among senior women as well. So we are bringing that, the inspiration and the influencing that the myth was talking about, not just focusing on the women, but on the men as well. So if I may take a few minutes to elaborate on the three. The first one, in terms of lobbying, we did this very successfully last year together with the Securities and Exchange Commission of Sri Lanka. We were instrumental in promoting a progressive quota for public listed companies together with the SEC and succeeded in including this in the budget proposals of 2018. As per the progressive quota proposed, we expect a steep increase from the current 9% of women on PLC boards to reach 30% by 2024. With regard to the training program, we will be launching the Women Directors Training Program during this month to coincide with International Women's Month. We have crafted a one-day training program aimed at strengthening board-ready women so that they are ready to successfully handle board dynamics and contribute at an optimal level. The program also includes one-on-one coaching by corporate leaders such as chairmen and MDs who have readily agreed to devote their time. We also request a champion from within the organization who will support the progress and the promotion of these women. I must take this opportunity to thank IFC and LOPA particularly for the support they have given by conducting several Train the Train programs for those who will be our faculty in the Women Directors Training Program. In terms of building awareness, we are actively speaking with corporate heads to get their buy-in and their participation. And I must say, so far, the response has been very positive. We are also taking this message through the media to make women in senior roles aware that we are offering this program so that they can self-nominate as well as nominate their next level. And this goes for men as well, so that the corporate leaders are aware of the program. In conclusion, I would like to say that the Sri Lanka Institute of Directors has taken on the ambitious target of 30% by 2024 as a KPI for itself, where we will be actively promoting more women onto PLC boards as well as private unlisted companies. My working committee consists of 5 dynamic women who are here with us today. They are leaders in their own fields, and it's a great strength to have their support in addition to the SLID Council, who is also very supportive. This is a journey we began some 2 to 3 years ago, and given that we are women, we will only stop once we succeed. Thank you very much.
I now invite Deputy General Manager, Strategic Sustainability at MAS Holdings and Steering Committee member of UN Global Compact Sri Lanka, Ms. Amanthi Pereira, to the podium to address the gathering.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. But on behalf of the United Nations Global Compact Local Network, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the organizers for this opportunity to speak. While the statistics in Sri Lanka and the world have reflected positive change, this narrative in gender equality, it is clear that progress has been painfully slow. Women may lead more Fortune 500 companies than ever before, but we've only managed to move that needle to about 6.6%. Women hold 15% of the board seats globally, but only 4% at CEO and chair positions. Gaps in control of financial assets continue to preserve economic disparities between men and women. Women have as much financial control and access to financial services in just 60% of the countries in the world, and to land ownership to even less, 42%. While automation and technology has presented opportunities for both men and women, this still poses a higher risk to widen this gender gap, as women remain significantly underrepresented in high growth and high impact STEM jobs, and only 22% are actually in AI. The World Economic Forum 2020's Global Gap Report estimates that at the current pace of change, it will take 257 years to close the economic gender gap. Stating the obvious, we don't have that kind of time. So, especially when the business case as Amina spoke a few minutes back, is so clear. Right? When women are included in leadership, economies grow, sustainable development takes place, and business thrives. But interestingly, from a sustainability professional's point of view, women's business leadership also strengthens corporate sustainability, leading to reduced greenhouse gases, stronger worker relations, and reduced incidents of fraud and insider trading. So if your organization has the power to make so much change within as one, what is the power as a collective? So we at the UN Global Compact have also been driving this agenda. Firstly, with the Women's Empowerment Principles, the WEPs, a holistic practical framework which was launched 10 years ago with just 39 CEOs and today has 2,700 business leaders behind it. One of the interesting things that joining agendas such as these does is that there are tools. For instance, the Web Gender Gap tool has brought to our attention that a study of this tool shows that while 68% of CEOs have openly signed up for gender equality, and you have open commitments from companies, over 40% of them say so, it's only about 30% of companies that actually have KPIs and measures on gender. So it's very important that as much as we sit and speak, that we follow it up with KPIs and follow-up measures and have your performance related to that. More recently, the UN Global Compact fortified its efforts through the Target Gender Equality tool, which is an accelerator program for participating companies, which drives greater global collaboration, bold action, and to drive agendas such as with both state and other actors that contribute onto this. So if your organization has already joined the Global Compact, I urge you to sign up for these two very important initiatives. The UN Global Compact was set up on an ethos of the strength of the collective. It is the world's largest corporate sustainability initiative with over 9,500 companies across 160 countries, representing almost every sector and size. It calls for us to align our operations and strategies on the universal principles of human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. Today, the local network boasts of over 40 members, and I can see many of them seated amongst us. The steering committee, for instance, has Aitken Spence, Brandix, Commercial Bank, Dialogue, Dilma, LPTA Plantations, Growlight, Harry's, KVPL, MAS Holdings, Noritake, Unilever, and Virtusa. So it is a wonderful opportunity, especially through the fact that we have 3 working groups on business and human rights, diversity and gender equality, and climate action. Personally, as MAS Holdings, we have benefited much through our association with the UN Global Compact. Firstly, in having access to tools in core areas, tying to the global purpose, and through the sharing of best practices. I urge you to join the Global Compact and thereby engage with us, the local network, to be the change you want to see. 2020 is unique, as it's the 10th anniversary of the Women's Empowerment Principles, 20th anniversary of the Global Compact, and the 75th anniversary of the UN itself, all of which contributes to this unique momentum of action for you and I, together with the global community. Thank you.
Now may I kindly invite onto the podium the High Commissioner, Australian High Commission in Sri Lanka, His Excellency David Hawley.
Hi everyone, Vanakkam, Assalamu alaikum, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for this opportunity, but can I also just say how proud I am to be here. A 5th anniversary is now a tradition. I think once you get to that mark, it's not about doing something new, it's about continuing on and making something a part of what we do in our culture. Why is Australia here? I just wanted to briefly explain. You have seen our logo in conjunction with the IFC, who we see as a very strong partner in the delivery of gender equality and women's empowerment across the world, but particularly here in Sri Lanka. The short story is, we challenged each other. We said we need to do more on gender equality, and the IFC, being such a global network, said, all right, well, we'll look to do a bilateral program. And it is because of you that we have been able to find a home here in Sri Lanka to be able to take forward this program with the IFC. And I've heard a lot today about the discussion in relation to directors on boards, and I want to congratulate the achievements that have been there. But I also wanted to take some time to acknowledge the work that's being done by many of the blue chip companies here in Sri Lanka. I had the great opportunity last night to congratulate 16 of Sri Lanka's large blue chip companies on the work that they are doing at many different levels within their organisations. In this regard, it was work either to be able to ensure better retention of women in work, sometimes being able to clear pathways for women to be able to take up career opportunities that aren't always there, and to give them the strength to feel that they could take those particular opportunities. And in other cases, it was about CSR opportunities to ensure that women in the community feel comfortable and have the opportunities that others have in being able to access things such as finance and insurance and a range of other services that many others may not have been able to get before. This is now showcased together in a book that we are now calling Together We Can. And that's a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful coffee book, but what it has is rich case studies. What we need at the moment is case studies which show how the corporate world and gender equality are working together. You have these within your organisations, and they're the ones that we need to be highlighting. What will happen is Sri Lanka, through the IFC network, is going to be held up as a case study for the world. You're going to find corporates all around the world looking at what these 16 blue chip companies here have done and trying to emulate them elsewhere. So the challenge for you is to say, job well done, but what more can be done? And I think I just wanted to take this opportunity to congratulate you all and the leadership that Sri Lanka is showing in this regard, and to ensuring that we are able to be a partner with you through the IFC to continue on the work in relation to gender equality. Thank you very much.